Coming up, the Dolphins and Colts pull off upsets while some injuries wreak havoc elsewhere. This is Locked On Game to Game NFL.
Every game, every team, every angle. Locked On Game to Game, your team every day.
Welcome in. You're listening to Locked On Game to Game NFL, local experts taking you from game to game in week 3 of the NFL season. I'm your host, Kainani Stevens. Thank you for making Locked On your first listen every single weekday. 2 undefeated AFC East teams met up in Miami on Sunday, and the Dolphins made a huge statement by handing the first loss of the season to the Buffalo Bills, who are looking like Super Bowl favorites before this matchup on Sunday. 50 years after their undefeated season, the Dolphins are trying to do it again. They started off 3-0. Both Locked On Dolphins and Bills recap after time ran out for Buffalo.
The Miami Dolphins are 3-0 off the heels of a 21-19 victory over the Buffalo Bills. A gutsy victory at home for the Miami Dolphins on the backs of the Dolphins defense, which was constantly out on the field at Hard Rock Stadium, almost to the detriment of the Bills' offense, which dominated the time of possession and plays snapped, but ultimately saw some sloppiness down the stretch, which cost the Bills the football game. This was a dramatic win for the Dolphins, who are now the lone remaining undefeated team in the AFC as the NFL schedule gets ready to flip over to Week 4.
The Buffalo Bills fell 21-19 to the Miami Dolphins, which leads me to an important question. Can the Bills win close games? I'm Joe Marino, host of the Locked On Bills podcast. It was a statistically dominant performance by the Buffalo Bills, who had 31 first downs to the Dolphins' 15, 497 total yards to Miami's 212. The Bills possessed the ball for 41 minutes to Miami's 19. Buffalo ran 90 plays. Miami ran 39. With all that said, the Bills lost this game 21-19, and they have to prove themselves more capable of winning one-score games. Now, the Bills have boat raced a lot of teams, and the Bills are good at that. They've won 20 games in a row by 10 or more points. That's insane. But what about when that doesn't happen? The Bills are 0-7 in one-score games dating back to the start of last season. For more on your Buffalo Bills, be sure to check out the Locked On Bills podcast every Monday through Friday, free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Not to be outdone in terms of upsets, the Kansas City Chiefs took a loss in Indianapolis that was maybe even more surprising than the Bills losing. The Colts held KC to just 17 points, and they got their first win with Matt Ryan at quarterback. Both our Locked On local hosts tell you more.
The Indianapolis Colts have done the unthinkable and upset the Kansas City Chiefs in week 3 of this young season. I'm Zach Hicks at Locked On Colts podcast, and we are finally in a celebratory mood here with the Colts. I mean, this is great. The Colts came out and they played a really strong game. Now, I'm not going to say they didn't have some things go their way, but their defense came to play, their special teams came to play, and they really took it to one of the league's best teams. And this is kind of a surprise for us right now, because through the first 2 weeks, the Indianapolis Colts looked like one of the worst teams in football. But they really turned it around here in week 3 against a really strong team in the Kansas City Chiefs. So thanks for checking in, everybody. For more on the Indianapolis Colts and next week's slate of games, be sure to check out the Locked On Colts podcast every Monday through Friday. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
The Kansas City Chiefs stalled out like a 15-year-old trying to drive stick against the Indianapolis Colts. I'm Ryan Tracy from Locked On Chiefs, and this was a day that the staff, the players, the front office, the entire organization would like to have back. They looked past the Colts. They didn't execute, and quite frankly, looked bewildered at times. This is a team that has high expectations, as always, and every now and then with Andy Reid teams, you see them just not look prepared. That's what happened here. The offense couldn't move and couldn't take advantage of a defense that actually put up a great game against Jonathan Allen and the strength of the Colts offense. So while that effort was put out and the defense came through, a lot of letdowns. Chris Jones, critical error late in the game with the penalty that revived that Colts offense. Patrick Mahomes looked off most of the day. Run game was non-existent. There's a lot to fix in Kansas City. We'll talk about it all this week on Locked On Chiefs.
Justin Herbert did end up playing on Sunday after dealing with those injured ribs all week, having him questionable until game time, but he didn't do too much in the game. LA scored just 10 points and lost to Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars. A Locked On Jaguars and Locked On Chargers tell you how Jacksonville made beating LA look pretty easy.
The Jacksonville Jaguars are victorious in Los Angeles by beating the Los Angeles Chargers 38-10 in what was a dominating performance, a signature performance for the second week in a row. The Jaguars controlled the ball for 38 minutes, more than 38 minutes, and the Chargers only had it 21 minutes and ran over 75 plays on offense as they got out early and then played with the lead. That has become the blueprint of this team the last 2 weeks. They've outscored two really good opponents 62-10 in the last 8 quarters. The Jaguars have a signature win for Doug Peterson, go to 2-1, and now sit atop of the AFC South. And they go to Philly next week so Doug can try to get some revenge on the Eagles.
The Los Angeles Chargers lost in a blowout to the Jacksonville Jaguars 38-10 here in week 3. This is David Drogemeyer of the Locked On Chargers podcast, and this was an ugly game for the Chargers. On offense, Justin Herbert, 1 touchdown, 2 turnovers, an interception, and a fumble. They couldn't really do much on offense. They really struggled to run the football, and they did not do themselves any favors on third down. Their average yards to go on third down was 8.3 yards, and that was a major reason why they struggled to move the ball on offense. On defense, they couldn't really get any pressure on Trevor Lawrence. They also got gashed on the ground, giving up 153 yards rushing, including 100 yards to James Robinson. Trevor Lawrence was very comfortable in this game, a lot of easy layup completions that helped them move the ball down the field, and they kept those off with touchdowns, winning very convincingly. And unfortunately, the Chargers lost a couple of guys due to injury. Defensive end Joey Bosa and left tackle Rashawn Slater both left this game with injuries. A very injured Chargers team losing in a blowout, but for more on this game and for more on the Chargers, please check out Locked On Chargers, your team every day.
Coming up, things went down to the wire in Foxborough. This is Locked On Game to Game NFL. This edition of Locked On Game to Game is brought to you by our sponsor at BetterHelp. Therapy has helped me a ton through the years, and if you're at a place where you feel like that would be beneficial to you, BetterHelp is a great option and a really good, convenient, accessible, affordable place to start. When you want to be a better problem solver, therapy can definitely help get you there. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp.com/lockedon. Welcome back to Locked On Game to Game NFL. I'm Kainani Stevens. Thank you for making Locked On your first listen every weekday. Lamar Jackson did Lamar Jackson things on Sunday. He rushed for a touchdown. He threw for 4 more in Foxborough. The Patriots suffered a tough loss at home, but they may be dealing with an even worse loss if Mac Jones ends up being out because of an ankle injury he suffered on the last play of the game. Locked On Patriots and Locked On Ravens fill us in on both sides.
The New England Patriots had their chances to earn a victory over the Baltimore Ravens in Week 3. However, the Patriots turned the ball over 4 times, 3 of which came on Mac Jones interceptions. Patriots just had too many self-inflicted wounds on Sunday, but they did have some positives as well. The Patriots defense helped to sack quarterback Lamar Jackson 4 times in the first half and also intercepted him in the second quarter when cornerback Jonathan Jones was able to undercut a route. The Patriots still do have some work to do, but on offense, they looked a little bit better as the Jones connection with Devontae Parker seems to be catching fire. However, all eyes are on the health of quarterback Mac Jones as he looks to recover from what is being described as a left leg injury. An MRI on Monday will confirm exactly how long Mac may be out, if at all, and what the seriousness of the injury is. For all of the latest news, notes, and analysis from Foxborough, stay tuned to the Locked On Patriots podcast, free and available wherever you get your podcasts.
The Baltimore Ravens get an important win over the New England Patriots in Week 3. This is Kevin Oestreicher, the host of Locked On Ravens, and in a game with plenty of twists and turns, the Ravens come out victorious in New England, 37-26. Lamar Jackson did his Lamar Jackson thing and played Lamar Jackson football. 5 total touchdowns, a Jackson 5 for the former league MVP, who has entered himself into the MVP conversation early on here in the 2022 season. Mark Andrews scores 2 touchdowns. Devin Duvernay can't stop scoring touchdowns. And on the defensive side of the ball, while Baltimore did allow Devontae Parker to torch them on multiple different big plays, the defense comes up with 4 timely turnovers, including an incredible punch out by Kyle Hamilton, then recovered by Marcus Peters. Baltimore will now look to continue and wrap up their AFC East tour back in Baltimore against the Buffalo Bills in week 4, but a very good building block for Baltimore, picking up a win after that very, very tough loss in Miami, where the defense blew a 21-point fourth quarter lead. Baltimore's defense, although there are some things to clean up, they were able to get back on track and still get a win over Mac Jones, Bill Belichick, and the New England Patriots. For more on the Baltimore Ravens and their Week 3 win, be sure to follow the Locked On Ravens podcast and subscribe on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
A battle of winless teams in Nashville saw the Titans finally break through to the winning side and get their first victory of the year. Locked On Titans talks us through a game in which Tennessee never trailed.
The Tennessee Titans were able to survive on Sunday and defeat the Las Vegas Raiders 24-22 for their first win of the season. My name's Tyler Rowland, host of the Locked On Titans podcast. The Tennessee Titans came out blazing in the first half. They looked like the Tennessee Titans that Titans fans hoped that they could be. They got Derrick Henry going with the outside zone run game. They were able to hit some passes in play action and put some points up on the board. But in the second half, the Tennessee Titans offense went silent, as we've seen far too many times. But luckily, at the end of the game, the Titans defense was able to make enough plays. Kevin Byard gets an interception. Then at the end of the game, backup linebacker Dylan Cole knocks a pass away to prevent a 2-point conversion. A big-time win for the Titans in what was a playoff game in September. They prevent themselves from dropping to 0-3 and keep themselves within the AFC South race. For instant analysis and reaction to the Titans win over the Raiders, check out the Locked On Titans YouTube channel. Check out the Locked On Titans podcast on any platform. Free and available every day. Locked On Titans.
That's all for today on Locked On Game to Game NFL. Thank you for making Locked On your first listen every weekday. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On NFL on YouTube and wherever else you get your podcasts. Make sure you listen to your team's Locked On podcast as well. I'm Kainani Stevens. This has been Locked On Game to Game.